Okay, and we're back. I think we're on now.
Yeah. It says live.
All right.
Hey.
Hi. Welcome to episode 3 of the Schmoe Show, where we're going to talk about saving the world with the food that you eat. But first, our jingle. Welcome to the Schmoe Show! Wow, that was a really good one. I also wanted to say Happy National Tequila Day, and we are celebrating National Tequila Day with a martini. Oh, cheers.
Cheers.
Ooh, tell us about this little garnish.
Oh, why don't you hold it up to the camera?
Oh.
Don't spill it. So, ooh, look at that hog jaw, fried hog jaw, since we're, hog farmers, and an olive.
Yeah, when Drew first said, oh, we're having hog jowl, I was like,
Jaw.
what is he saying? I say jowl, like owl. He says Joel, like
I say jawl, like y'all.
So, anyway, I was like, who are you? But, anyway, this is delicious forest-raised, healthy, happy, hog jowl meat.
J-O-W-L. Jaw. Y'all.
Well, it's delicious, whatever it is. So, cheers. Today, like I said, we're talking about saving the world with the food that we eat, which sounds like a big, bold claim. And something that we like to say in our field is, it's not the how, it's the cow.
It's not the how.
It's not the how.
It is the how.
It's the how. It's not the cow. Yeah. So, so we need to have a discussion. We're going to take it back to grade school, y'all. We are going to talk about photosynthesis. Now, who remembers photosynthesis? I don't. I just remember learning about it in grade school science class, I think. It was before, like, biology was, like, part of, like, a harder science. Ashley's got your back. She says Drew is saying jowl correctly, so maybe I need to hop on that train. So, photosynthesis. Wow, what a big, sexy word. Photosynthesis, what does it do? Well, I'm going to show you. So, I'm a plant. And, ooh, I'm so hungry. I'm eating the sunshine. I'm sucking in the carbon from the air because I need to make some oxygen because I am so hungry, and that's what I do when I poop, is I make oxygen. So I'm sucking in that sunshine and that carbon dioxide or carbon, and it's going all through me down to my root systems. And, what's that? And anyway, the carbon gets put into the soil where it's in the form of carbon residue and root secretions, and there it feeds microbes, and the microbes then transform that carbon into building blocks, and those building blocks are soil organic matter. So it's literally building soil through these microbes that are eating the carbon that the plant is drawing from the atmosphere. And carbon is stabilized and it's kept safe in the ground, thus sequestering it. And that's why you hear so much from these kind of farms saying, like, we're carbon sequesters, carbon sequestration. It's like, what does that mean? Well, that's what that means. I just told you. Excuse me, that martini. So why does that matter? Cool, plants. Yeah, we know that. We know they do that. It matters because pasture-raised food productions maximize what photosynthesis does for our environment. So, and I've talked about this before, but like we're CAFO animal production systems. CAFO is basically factory-raised. It's an acronym for Concentrated Animal Feeding Operations. And so I'm just going to call it CAFO meat or SAD meat or whatever you want to call it. That's what I'm going to call it. CAFO meat And in previous episodes, we've talked about, how it's not as healthy because of foodborne illnesses and the skyrocketing obesity rates that we see in our country, which contribute heavily to our crisis with our healthcare system. Also our taxpayer money, which is subsidizing the system, which is actually hurting us, which is, kind of backwards. But today we're going to focus on the pollution aspect, or rather the anti-pollution aspect that pasture-raised food production does. So according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, based on a 2005 study, 1/3 of greenhouse emissions come from everything related to agricultural production. That includes crops, tractors, distribution, fertilizers, like everything that relates to agricultural production contributes to 1/3 of greenhouse emissions. That is not a joke. That is a serious figure. And what's even scarier about it, I'm smiling out of horror. What's even scarier about it is that this is from a study from data from 2005. There hasn't been as big a study from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change since then that I'm aware of. But they predict that each year 1.1% growth in the greenhouse emissions. So 2005, what is that, 15 years ago? That's 15% more now. And anyway, you can do the math. And by the way, with all that is that our food production is a big part of what is contributing to climate change. And this isn't anything new. We've all seen the studies. We've all heard about it. It's in the news constantly. And the reason I'm talking about this is because so much of what's going on in the news is saying to us, well, you need to eat less meat. You need to go vegetarian. You need to be vegan. And to me, what's kind of disappointing about that is there's no discussion of regenerative agriculture, which is what pasture-raised food production is, when it's done correctly. And there's something to be said about that, because of all these studies that are saying, well, eat less meat, there's going to be less carbon emissions. Well, yeah, that makes sense if you're basing it off of a food system that's raised CAFO style. Again, that's concentrated animal feeding operations. So animals that are raised on concrete in factories, animals that create huge manure issues, all the chicken houses, all the pig houses where they're all shoved in together and pumped with medicines that then get out into our environment, sink into our aquifers. And anyway, we're aware of that problem, and it seems overwhelming. Like, what can we do about it? Well, I want to tell you, you can, every day, you can vote on it. I'm not saying it's political. You can vote by using your dollars and purchasing pastured or forest-raised food. I've talked about the greenhouse emissions of agriculture. I've scared everyone to death about all these statistics, which again, I'm going to post so that you have them. But something that we need to embrace for this to change is that for ecological farming, or for pasture-raised farming, which is what I'm talking about and what our farm does and what you'll see other farms doing, to thrive, we have to have a cultural shift towards pasture-raised food. And how do we do that? Well, the culture can buy food that is raised this way. It's actually a very simple solution, and I know it can take an extra step to find this kind of food and to find your local farmer and to embrace it, but it's so important that we do, especially because it is overwhelming seeing every day, like, it's 89 degrees in the Antarctica and the Greenland glaciers are melting, or I don't know. It's horrifying, but we can do it literally by eating a pastured egg. We can reduce carbon emissions. So one of the studies I want to cite about this, and what's so cool about it, is it's by a farm that's just 2.5 hours west of us. They're called White Oak Pastures, and they did a comprehensive study on their carbon emissions, and they do a layered pastured food production where they have the chickens and the turkeys and the pigs and the cows, like, all rotating through the land. And they did a thorough study and they published it. And I'm putting the link in the post that we're going to put out after this. But they have done a study that found that they actually reduced carbon emissions with their food production. So it's not just like, well, it seems like that would be a good way to go and it's healthier for us, but they actually have like scientific evidence that it does reduce net carbon emissions, and not only reduce it, but they're in the negative with it. So just imagine, by eating this kind of food, you're actually contributing to a negative carbon emission cycle. So I think that's pretty thrilling that you can do that. So and how exactly that works and how I'm going to tie this in with photosynthesis, because I did have to look at photosynthesis again, because I was like, well, I know carbon does this and then microbes do that. But what happens is in a well-managed pasture production system with intensive grazing, and by intensive grazing, I mean animals that are put on the pasture, they do what they need to do, and then they're moved off. They're not left on the pasture to continuously graze down the plant matter. They're there for a hot minute and then they're moved off so that the plants can then grow back up. So what this does is it stimulates the plants to grow even deeper root systems, because they know that they're going to have a chance to grow back, and so the root systems can get like 6 feet long, and that is an incredible amount of carbon that's being pulled back into the plant and then stored in the roots for those microbes to eat. 6 feet underground. And that's other studies too. I just like that one because they're nearby, they're local, they do a similar thing to us. We don't have cows. We do pigs and chickens. And yes, there is more input with pork and chickens because they are omnivores and they do require corn and soybeans, but we reduce those carbon footprints because we get ours milled and grown locally, and we get non-GMO. So by virtue of it being non-GMO, there's less, Roundup and glyphosate and pesticides, and the farms that do non-GMO typically are practicing more sustainably. So yes, there are more inputs for pork and chicken, but at the end of the day, they're contributing towards a richer soil culture where they actually are creating more life and more microbes and more plant growth versus just sitting in a factory, unhappy, being mistreated. Oh Lord. Well, so anyway, for ecological farming to thrive, we need a cultural shift to ecological eating. And that is a direct quote from Joel Salatin from Polyface Farm, and I encourage you to look him up if you haven't. What I talked about today is just the tip of the iceberg, really. I really encourage you to read Omnivore's Dilemma. That is a fabulous book that details all this in great depth. Oh, wow, look at that. Oh! And Michael Pollan, great author. And, Kiss the Ground, Josh Tickle, eating the right food to save the world. I know it sounds like out of outer space, but it makes sense. I mean, when you think about it, go back to your 3rd grade brain and figure out photosynthesis and see what plants do and why animals eating those plants helps contribute to more carbon sequestration. So, without further ado, I think I've confused everyone quite enough for this episode. But I have, if you have questions, please reach out to us. I'm going to post links to what we were doing or what the numbers that I was citing. And Drew, do you have anything you want to add or?
No, just
No.
hello. We'll post this video cleaned up because we had a little rocky start again. We're still sort of figuring it out, and we have bad internet, so we'll figure it out. But we'll post it here on Facebook, and we'll post it on our YouTube channel, so you can go and catch anything you couldn't hear or couldn't see. Whatever, 'cause it is recording, so we'll post the video.
It showed our internet going in and out, so.
And we'll check us out here on Facebook, where you are, our YouTube channel, if you want to see other little videos, our Instagram, where we have lots of fun little pictures and all that. And yeah, that's it.
Well, cheers. Well,
Cheers.
thanks for
Oh, I
joining
drank all
us
mine.
tonight. Oh, gosh. All right, bye.